Errol, I got to tell you something. I believe we're going to see this line change after the weigh-ins. And I don't know there's many fights in history where you can say that. Look, Stipe has done one thing meaningfully different from the first time he fought Ngannou, which is he's lost 10 pounds. Errol, you remember this when Stipe went out to fight Daniel Cormier Part 2. He gets to the scale. He's 231 pounds. 241 pounds is what he was in their previous fight. You're just sitting there wondering why. Did Stipe change his diet? Did he start a running program and he's just taken? But it's one of these things, when you have a heavyweight as lean as Stipe, you're talking about muscle, you're talking about cannibalizing muscle, and we were all left with the question of how did this happen and is it going to behoove him? 2 victories over Daniel Cormier. Later, I think we've got our answer that the champ can weigh what the champ wants, but I will bring the weight back into this because if he gets in there at 230 against a much bigger man, that's different than Daniel Cormier. Stipe wants to get in on these doubles. He wants to drag him down. I can tell you as a wrestler, size matters in wrestling. You want to be on top of a guy and you want to keep him pinned there like Stipe did in the first contest. Size matters when it comes to the grappling skills of mixed martial arts and those jiu-jitsu frames. I only bring that to you because I think there's a lot more dialogue to go on. I've seen great things from Stipe. I've seen that his conditioning and his ability to prove himself in championship rounds. I'm not seeing that from Francis. That's because Francis has done a great job. I don't want to backhand a guy because of his own successes, but the reality is Francis hasn't been in there in those long fights. I think it's going to be relevant, and hold this thought on what I'm saying about the weigh-in.
Okay, good, because I actually want to ask you a follow-up. What's the number, if you could, if you could get Stipe to that perfect weight that he'll be, in the ideal sort of spot come Friday and then eventually Saturday, what's the number you're looking for? What's the number where you're like, okay, he nailed it? Or what's the number where you're like, a little too light, I don't know how this is going to go over on Saturday?
I put the over-under at 240 pounds. Stipe has won the world championship at 239. He defended a world championship at 241. So I'm going to call it 240. But look, if he comes in any bit smaller, just some of that stuff he needs to do, get in on a double, run his feet. I can just tell you, don't forget on wrestling, it's not about technique. It's about one very simple thing, gravity. You knock a guy off balance, gravity will pull him down to the mat. Knocking a guy off balance helps when you're big, and Stipe's a little bit smaller right now.
Okay, so this is great because typically when you have a heavyweight championship fight, the weigh-ins aren't all that intriguing, right? Usually there's not a lot of weight to be cut. Everyone's coming in under 265 right at the limit, but it's not like, I don't know, a Khabib or Conor weigh-in. But ever the showman, Chael Sonnen, letting everyone know that they must watch the weigh-in show this Friday on ESPN+. So thank you for the plug, Chael. We appreciate it. Now, as far as this next fight compared to the first fight goes, here's another thing that's on my mind. Obviously, we know that Stipe won that fight, and obviously we know that his next fight was a loss to Daniel Cormier. We also know that he rebounded very nicely and won the next 2 fights against DC fair and square. We remember that he was losing the early portion of that rematch against DC, ended up turning things around and finishing him, which is supremely impressive, and we know that he won the second fight via decision. We know about his evolution, we know about the changes he's made. We don't really know all that much about Francis. We know he lost his confidence. We know he changed teams. He's now training exclusively in Las Vegas with the likes of Eric Nitzik, who's become one of the best coaches in MMA. But we don't know anything about the second round, Francis, let alone third round, let alone fourth and fifth round. I feel like there are way more question marks about Francis, despite the amazing 4-fight winning streak that he's on, as opposed to Stipe. We know who Stipe is. And by the way, Stipe appears to be getting better and smarter as a fighter as his career goes on. All the pressure, all the questions are surrounding the challenger. And that's why, going back to show 1, which aired on Wednesday, I'm baffled by the fact that people are saying that Francis should be the betting favorite. Makes no sense to me. Stipe's been through the ringer. He has proved himself before against the very best. Francis, yeah, he's knocked guys out, he's blitzed them, but what happens when the going gets tough? We only know the answer to that question once in his career, and it was against Stipe and maybe even against Derek Lewis. What happened? He lost both those fights. I'm not here to poo-poo Francis. I think he is incredibly talented. I think he's one of the best fighters in the sport, but we still don't know a lot about him, and I suspect we're about to find out come Saturday.
And Francis has one way to win, right? It's with a knockout, and it's going to be something with a strike with the hands. I mean, that's relevant. You don't really have to worry about Francis's knees or the head kicks. You got to worry about the hands. Now, look, that's a great way to go if you're Francis Ngannou. This is the scariest guy in the sport. He's the rightful #1 contender. So I'm with you in that I don't want to dismiss him. But I am very interested in the phenomenon of the dismissing and the betting against Stipe time and time again, particularly in a rematch with an opponent that Stipe's already beat at the same weight class under the same rule set.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.